So, what would you say to a woman who's tuned in today that might be experiencing loss or a fall from grace, or, either in their personal or their professional life, or maybe even both? What would you say to them?
I say that our world tells you to hurry up and get on with it,
Hmm.
and that we've internalized that as well. And we make ourselves wrong for what we're experiencing.
Mm,
We think that we did something wrong, that we're not where we should be. We beat ourselves up about it. But really you're in exactly the right place. You're exactly where you need to be. Trust your process. Trust the timing. Let it take as long as it needs to take. The more that you try to rush it, the more that you're going to stay stuck in it.
hmm
And the more that you really
hmm
turn into it and allow it, the more it's going to transform you in the ways that you most want to, but it's likely not going to feel good in the moment, but it's going to feel amazing long term.
Hello, my extraordinary women friends. Today we have the pleasure of welcoming Sara Avant Stover, one of my favorite authors. This is the second time I've had Sara on Extraordinary Women Radio. The first time we spoke about one of my favorite books of all times, The Way of the Happy Woman. In our interview today, Sara gets vulnerable and she shares her personal story that inspired her newest book, Handbook for the Heartbroken, which explores how times of hardship can profoundly impact women entrepreneurs. As women entrepreneurs, this is an important topic because over the course of our business lifetimes, we are going to experience many heartbreaks. It's just a given. It's life. It's a fact. It might be the loss of a loved one. It might be the loss of a dream, the loss of a relationship. There's so many ways that we can look at heartbreak. It's simply life. And we are always humans living life first. Today, Sara shares her personal story that inspired her newest book and how heartbreak has shaped her path as an entrepreneur, and discover the transformative growth that can arise from such experiences. Sara has uplifted tens of thousands of women worldwide through her teachings and has been featured on Yoga Journal, the Huffington Post, Newsweek, Natural Health, and on major networks like ABC, NBC, and CBS. Let's get ready to uncover the strength hidden in our struggles and learn how to move forward with grace and resilience. Let's meet Sara Avant Stover. Well, welcome back to Extraordinary Women Radio, Sara. It is so great to have you back again.
Thanks. It's good to be back. It's been a while.
It has been a while, and your book, The Way of the Happy Woman, has been a staple on my bookshelf for a long time. I come back time and time again to that book. In fact, as I was prepping for this, I'm like, oh, I really need to get that back out and read some more of it again because I love how it goes through the different seasons. And I think it's just so relevant for us as women entrepreneurs to really tune into what's going on for us in every season and what's calling to us. Is it, the seasons of our businesses, the seasons of of nature. There's just so much rhythm and cycle that we can tap into. And I think that's really, I think it's just really a gift to be able to tap into that.
I totally agree. And I hear that a lot from women that they return to that book again and again.
Hmm.
We live in a culture that is so, as you know, not oriented around cycles and seasons and so much more
Right.
linear. And so the more that we can just remind ourselves of the
Hmm.
power of that, like you said,
Yeah.
not just in our personal lives, but also in our work, I think the
Right.
better off we're all gonna to feel and even do, it's just mirroring our creative cycles.
Yeah, yeah, I so love it. I so love it. So your newest book is The Handbook for the Heartbroken, and it's about how the times of hardship can really impact women entrepreneurs. So I'd love to just start with your story. I mean, what prompted? I mean, tell us about the journey that you went through with hardship, and the story behind this book.
Yeah. Well, this I started living this story right after my second book came out. So my second book, The Book of She, came out in October of 2015. And I thought that, talking about creative cycles, I thought that I was at the end of a cycle of a lot of exertion and that I was going to be entering into a period of more rest and
Mm-hmm.
regeneration. That
Mm-hmm.
was not what happened. So in
Mm-hmm.
February of 2016, so just a few months after my book came out, my
Mm-hmm.
then fiance came home one night and told me that he had been cheating on me. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned that it wasn't just a singular event, it was multiple times with multiple people over multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who's ever experienced a betrayal, you know that it just splices you through your core. That's what it
Right.
did for
Right.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It,
Somebody you trusted, and all betrayal
and that
was really.
I opened myself to him in a deeper way than I ever had to anyone before that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there was a period of obviously deep, deep heartbreak after that, deep shock,
Right.
anger, grief. And that betrayal just rippled through every area of my life. It impacted my health with the stress that I was under, which I've learned is also common. Um, Women can develop autoimmune diseases from heartbreak. I had
Mm.
type 2
I
diabetes
didn't know
for a
that.
while from
Oh,
the stress
wow. Mm-hmm.
levels. It can impact our ability to show up for work, especially for those of us who are self employed and
Right.
where your work is you. And for me, my work is me, and especially
Yep.
me showing up as my full self. And when I wasn't even sure of who I was anymore, that was very challenging. But
Mm-hmm.
that was not just a one and done event. And I actually then experienced serial heartbreaks between that time, 2016 and 2020, that I write about in the book that
Mm-hmm.
really touched on every area of my life, my relationships, my health, my career, my finances, my very sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I found during those years also was that in a lot of books about grief and heartbreak, many of the things that I experienced were not specifically addressed because a lot of conversations around heartbreak are about breakups and deaths, which
Mm-hmm.
are very
Mm-hmm.
real heartbreaks that, of course, impact us in a lot of ways. But some of the other things that I experienced, for instance, an abortion and failed fertility treatments, things like this, were not touched on in heartbreak books. And so I felt very
Mm.
excluded from those conversations already in a season of life that can feel very isolating.
Right.
So this book
Because
is
there
meant to
was
be
the
really,
layers of this.
yeah, so this book is meant to be really validating and inclusive of any kind of hardship that any of us ever experiences and the significant ways that it impacts us,
Yeah.
especially when we're self-employed, especially when we're entrepreneurs. It adds that
Yeah. And I think
extra level of challenge.
as entrepreneurs, we have big hopes and dreams and all the things that, we put our heart and soul into. And, you clearly put all your heart and soul into, the books you'd created, your business you'd built. And so what's different from the perspective of being a woman entrepreneur, that you really experienced through that journey?
Well, I didn't have anyone to lean on.
Mm,
So I, completely self-sufficient financially, didn't have a partner to lean on or a family member to lean on or even just like a steady paycheck to lean on. And that's significant
hmm.
because anyone who's been through a period of grief, you know that you cannot show up and work in the ways that you normally do.
Right. 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 And you've got to, I mean, I go back to, I think some of the biggest grief that I experienced in my life was when my sister passed. And that was about, it was 6 years ago. And I remember, taking that space in that time, um, where I just needed, you know, I needed to shut everything else off. But then there's this place of reentry as well. Right.
Yeah.
Did you experience the kind of the solitude place And then the reentry, how did that take shape for you?
Well, I think my story is hopefully maybe more of an anomaly than most because I had several heartbreaks back to back.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so during times when I
Yeah.
thought like, okay, ready to get back to normal, air quotes, normal,
Hmm.
something else happened to take me down. And something
Yeah.
else happened to take me down.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I just reached a level where I just, one of the stories that I share is how I dismantled my business. I received the inner guidance. This isn't what we're supposed to be doing anymore. I took everything apart and actually got a job, a
Hmm.
job with a capital
Hmm.
J, which I had never had before. And I didn't even know if I would be able to get a job, but it
Hmm.
was actually the best thing that I could have done. And
Hmm.
actually now when I mentor women in their businesses and if they're going through something challenging and they're experiencing financial hardship, one of the first things I say is, can you get a part-time job?
Right.
Or do you want to
Because
get a
it's a
job?
big lift, right? It can
Yes.
be a really big lift, and there's no shame in that. We were just having this conversation last week in a group that I was participating in, and there was someone, and in that conversation, there was, it's okay. There's over the course of our, and I've been in business over 15 years, and it's like there's different times and there's different seasons, if you will, in our businesses where a different level of revenue can come in and really support you in a different way. So I wholeheartedly agree that there's space and time for opening up to that, and it can lighten the load.
It can. And you say there's no shame, and I agree, but the thing is that there is shame in the
Hmm.
entrepreneurial world, and it can feel like a job can feel like a four-letter word. Like it was for me too. Like I actually wish that I had done it sooner in the process of to help
Hmm.
stabilize me. But it
Yeah.
took me as long as it took to get to that point. But now I'm really forthcoming with women that I mentor. If that does seem like something that could support her, just to put that on the option on the table.
Right. Right, exactly, exactly. So, what are some of the ways that you worked with all of just the heartbreak, the journey? I mean, what were some of the ways you started to find healing through this?
Well, one of the things, and we're talking about work as well, is I really quickly realized that my usual rhythms were gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I often say that, who I was in my life and my career prior to that night in February
Mm-hmm.
2016 just disappeared
Mm-hmm.
and never came back. And so I was in a
Mm-hmm.
period of just recalibration, like who am I now? What is my life like now? What does my work look like now? And so my daily rhythms kind of went out the window, and I really had to surrender to the fact that I was in more of a formless and kind of a chaotic space for some time
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
where, and we've all had this experience when there's a major heartbreak, where it's really about taking things one day at a time, and sometimes
Right.
even one moment at a time,
Right.
and just really seeing, what do I need to do to make it through today?
Right.
And with my work, like what are the most important things that I have to get done today? And not necessarily having like a full work day or fully mapped out plan, but just getting done what I could get done when I could.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then some of the main things that supported me within that was just going back to the basics. And by that, I mean just tending to my life force through rest,
Mm.
through movement,
Right.
through nature,
This is our vessel, right?
through
Our
just
glorious
simple food
vessel
and
that we
water.
have to take care of. Right.
So just making sure, because I normally have more like elaborate self care, but just making sure I was drinking water, that I was eating relatively healthy food. Walks outside were very, very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I couldn't sleep at night, that I was still laying down and letting myself rest.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we
Yeah.
tend to our life force, it's like our life force holds our spirit.
Right.
And our spirit holds the guidance for the unfolding of our lives. And so if we feed our life force, then our spirit is going to guide us through things that a lot of times our human personality doesn't know how to navigate.
Right. Right. And so how did this experience shape you, grow you?
There isn't a tidy soundbite for that, but I would say that
It never is, right? And it's like you'd love for there to be this very tidy soundbite, but it's not. I mean, that's not life.
it grew me in every possible way.
Hmm.
I would never be who I am right now without having gone through everything that I went through in those several years.
Right.
It caused me to realign, reshape, rebuild every aspect of my inner being and of my outer life and of my work. So it has taken several years to rebuild, but I can say that what I feel is a tremendous sense of freedom.
Mm.
Freedom that I am fully myself, unencumbered, that I am completely whole, that no stone has been left unturned.
Hmm.
And that's what
And
I
how
aim to
does
guide women to do through this
yeah?
book
I was gonna
is
say, how does that shape your work then? That's next question, and how you're serving your clients.
I feel that I can serve women at a much deeper level now because I've gone to so
Hmm.
much deeper levels in myself. I can
Hmm.
see things in them a lot more clearly. I can see what's holding them back.
Hmm.
It's almost like I have x-ray vision. I
Yeah.
can see specific instances or people, situations that have been unresolved that are maybe keeping them, or not maybe, often keeping them from not making the money they want to be making, not putting themselves out in the world in the ways that they want to, these kinds of things. And also in terms of just building my business, there's just such a deep alignment now that things that I was doing before were aligned, but now it's taken it to a whole new level. So I feel like I'm doing the best work that I've ever
Hmm.
done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really my
That's good. I mean,
soul's work. Like it's really aligned.
yeah, it's like you were really called. I mean, and it's like, we go through these journeys, if you will, these journeys that kind of crunch us through all different kinds of life experiences. And on the other side of that, it takes us deeper into our soul work. And I think that's what you're talking about here. And as you are, when you think about women entrepreneurs, what's the what do you see the hope for? I mean, that future hope as people go through their deep work, they go through their biggest challenging moments. What do you see the hope on the other side of that?
The hope is to become fully oneself
Yeah.
and to be fully, every soul comes into this world with a unique destiny.
Hmm.
In ancient Greek is called telos, or our ultimate aim. We all have our telos patterned in us. And when we are willing to go through our hardships consciously and to do the work that they're asking us to do, because one of the things that hardship is asking us to do when we're adults is to go back and heal all of the heartbreaks from our past that were left untended because we didn't have the inner or outer resources to do that at the time.
Right.
So a lot of the
Right.
work that I was doing in those years was also healing things from the past, also healing things from my ancestry. There's a lot of layers, and for those of us who have been on healing journeys for a while, we know it's kind of like an archaeological dig, but that allows you to then shed layers of the false personality so that you can fully do your life task. You can fully fulfill your destiny and
Hmm.
not be living out some false dreams that maybe someone else had for you that is not really true for what
Hmm.
your soul wants to do, for what your
Right.
dream is.
So good. So good. So, what would you say to a woman who's tuned in today that might be experiencing loss or a fall from grace, or, either in their personal or their professional life, or maybe even both? What would you say to them?
I say that our world tells you to hurry up and get on with it,
Mm-hmm.
and that we've internalized that as well. And we make ourselves wrong for what we're experiencing.
Mm,
We think that we did something wrong, that we're not where we should be. We beat ourselves up about it. But really you're in exactly the right place. You're exactly where you need to be. Trust your process. Trust the timing. Let it take as long as it needs to take. The more that you try to rush it, the more that you're going to stay stuck in it.
mm-hmm.
And the more that you really
Mm-hmm.
turn into it and allow it, the more it's going to transform you in the ways that you most want to, but it's likely not going to feel good in the moment, but it's going to feel amazing long term.
Yeah. So you got to dig through the mud to get to that other side of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, where can people learn more about you, about the book?
Yeah. So the book is and me can be found at handbookfortheheartbroken.com. And there's some gifts there. If you order the book and send us in your invoice or your receipt, we can send you some gifts to accompany your heartbreak journey. And there you can also find links to other things that I do. I have a podcast called Herself. You can find me on Instagram at Sara Avant Stover, and other retreats and programs and things to accompany the book.
Excellent, excellent. And the final question that I always close with are: what are three pearls of wisdom you'd like to share with us today?
3 pearls of wisdom, you said?
Yes. Uh-huh.
3 pearls of wisdom. What's coming forward are 3 words that I also share in the book: open, soften, and allow.
Mm. Open, soften, let the body soften, and then allow.
Yeah, and not just the body soften, but also the mind,
Mm.
also the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So we open, soften, and allow our experience to be exactly as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Love it.
great phrase to take on a walk or anytime that you're struggling with something, even if you had a stressful day or you're feeling anxious. It's how can I open, soften, and allow my experience to be exactly as it is?
Cool. Beautiful. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing, for your vulnerability, for writing the book that I think is probably well needed in the world of entrepreneurs, and doing such beautiful work in the world.
Thank you for having me.